Hey, can I ask y'all a question? Do you guys want to know what Jerry Sloan once said when one of his players showed up with blue hair to training camp?
Uh-oh.
Who the hell showed up
What'd he
with blue
say?
hair?
I want to say Raul Julio or whatever. It was like from the '02 season, somewhere around there.
Alfaro
Jerry
Rougeau?
Sloan ain't having it.
No, not him. But do you want to know what he said, though, when they asked him about what do you think of his blue hair?
Oh, I don't even want to know.
What'd he say?
Sloan said he's got to decide if he wants to be a basketball player or if he wants to be a clown.
I'm
What's
weak.
up, y'all? What's up, y'all? We're the HoopStorians. It is June 18th, 2024. I'm Tony Styles. That's my man Unique right there. And down below us is Kev Loves NBA from TikTok. If you ain't seen him, real big on the history of hoops and all that. Can I tell you guys about this day in NBA history?
Let's hear
Go
it.
for it.
This day in NBA history, June 18th, 1924, George Mikan is born in Joliet, Illinois. He would have been 100 today had he made it. I want your guys' thanks, and I know me and you, Kev, kind of talked about this, but where do you think Mikan should be ranked all time, and what was his impact on the game?
I can go first unless
Oh,
Unique has
sure.
something
Go
he
ahead.
wants.
No, you can
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I think people underrate George Mikan heavily. I feel like people try do what they've been doing a lot lately, which is discredit basketball history. They don't recognize and realize that George Mikan was the first real superstar, the first big man during a time period where they thought big men couldn't play in the NBA. Can you imagine that? Where a tall guy was just too awkward to play the game. Number 99 bringing 5 titles to Minneapolis. I personally have him ranked, I believe, at number 37, 36, somewhere in the 30s. I've seen people rank him as high as 17. I've seen people say that he doesn't even deserve to be ranked. So I feel like he's extremely disrespected by lesser known people who don't really care about basketball as much as we do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. On that, he's one of those bigs. Like he's one of those players who set the tone. He's one of those players that show you what you're supposed to do with that position. Like you were saying, a superstar at the role, at the position during his era. So things like that, I feel as though the takeaway from Mikan is the right way to play. Like you feel me, just the right way to play your position, doing what you can to utilize your, your talents and your skills and your size. Um, as far as where I have Mikan ranked, he's in my top 50. I'd probably say like probably my top 40, but definitely in my top 50.
I think Mikan to me, because like when ranking players, Walton and Mikan are the two hardest to rank for me. I put Mikan, because now that we're really big on lists and forcing to rank things, I got Mikan at 30th just because of the 5 rings. At the end of the day, I don't care when you played. If you were the best player on 5 title teams, you did your job. It's only the only people that are ahead of him that are the best player on more title teams is Russell and Jordan, and look how high we have those ranked. Well, people that know have Russell ranked correctly, and people that don't, I mean, they're like, you should belong in your top 10. I'm like, you're insane. Um, but anyways, so yeah, so Mikan's hard to me. Mikan's one of those players, like as long as you say he's top 50, but like with no particular rank, I mean, I would say that's where most people would kind of have him. He's just one of those guys you got to have in your top 50. But I don't know. Like I said, it. What about you, Kev? Is it harder to rank Walton or Mikan for you?
It's harder to rank Mikan simply because of the era he played in. He was playing in a time period where they weren't even keeping track of rebounds for a hot
I
second
know.
there. Like, what were they doing in the 40s and 50s? So that's why it's
Scoring.
kind of hard to rank because Mikan played in a time period where like he could play in a game with a broken leg. He did that once. That's the time period he played in. So it's kind of hard to talk about a guy who's probably one of the toughest players in NBA history, but also played during a time period where you can get away with certain things like that. So that's why he's hard to rank. I think as long as you rank by era and you understand, hey, look, this is what he did and this is why he deserves the credit that he deserves. But I think anything higher than, 32 is probably a little ludicrous, which is why I have him somewhere in that 32 to 38 range.
Well, there you hear it from Kev. I'm ludicrous, and that was this day in NBA history. So, oh, look at this. This is the new thing right here. Wootage knows we are done with being done with the past eras. Wootage knows. We done with them people that are done with the '90s.
Shout
So
out to
just let you,
Wish.
yeah. So just to let you know, I recorded a, Bob Ryan interview over the weekend. We were supposed to play it. We don't have it ready yet, so we're kind of doing this show on the fly. So anything you guys want to talk about, let us know. One of the things I wanted to talk about because it comes with the history of the NBA. I wanted to talk about because I go live on TikTok. Kev's live on TikTok. Um, just talking with people and ridiculous takes the average fan has. People that don't do deep dives and just kind of the narrative that's spun that isn't correct. So, Kev, you're the guest. You want to give us some of like let's just go one by one. What is one of the most ridiculous takes or you think false narratives out there that fans really believe?
That Kyrie Irving is the top 3-point guard of all time simply because he's really skilled.
Mm.
Here's my thing that I've had to deal with a lot lately is because I made a top 100 NBA players list and I've talked about it a lot in my lives, and you've seen a good chunk of that list. My biggest problem was Kyrie Irving. When people talk about him, I originally had him some at 69, and after doing some revisionist history, talking to some people, they made some cases. I dropped Kyrie Irving down even lower, where he's no longer in my top 75. And when you tell people that, they're like, Kyrie Irving is one of the most skilled players of all time, as if that really matters. It's a cool thing. It's a great thing. It's an aesthetically pleasing thing, but it's not something that actually has any meaning or merit behind it. And I don't think an average NBA fan really understands that.
No, no, no. I get that. Me and Neek broke this guy down before. I don't know if you know Anthony Randolph, but Anthony Randolph is one of the most skilled players ever. He should be one of the best players in the league, and he plays in China.
He
You know what I
dropped
mean?
45 in a summer league game once, didn't he?
Something like that. If you go on Basketball Reference and you start putting in weird numbers like players with 30 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 blocks, 3 steals, just weird numbers, you're going to get lists like David Robinson, Charles Barkley, Chris Webber, Anthony Randolph.
Yeah.
And that's in limited roles in the NBA. So that's what I hate. I saw a guy the other day, he had him top 16 all time. And I go, I don't know how a
Anthony
dude's
Randolph?
got one. No, he's got Kyrie Irving as the
I
Oh,
think I know what
16th
you're talking
greatest
about.
player. Yeah, 16th greatest player of all time. And I go, I don't understand how you got a guy that is the second best player on one title team as the 16th greatest player of all time. When there's only been 21 players ever that's won an MVP and won a title as the best player. So to me, those 21 would just clear alone on that.
I
You've
think
reached the height of individual awards, and now you've reached the height of team success as well.
this is the thing with Kyrie Irving that I say to people all the time is that they always go to 2016, which that was a great shot. That was definitely one of the greatest shots in NBA history. That is true. But since then, from that point on to 2023, what has he truly done? And you break it down and you tell people, they realize, oh, wait, actually, that's a lot of bad stuff. There's some really cool stuff, but there's a lot of bad stuff. How can a guy be 16th all time, according to some people, if he's never got an All NBA first team vote? How can he be
I mean,
16th all time if he's never got an MVP vote? How does that happen?
well, Neek, you got something to say?
yeah. I think really what it is people are projecting his skill with, I guess, his position. So what they're saying is based on his skill, this is what makes him so dope at his position. The issue with that is he's not doing the things that you're supposed to do at that position. And that is the reason why you can't really rank him too high as far as being a point guard. You can rank him wherever you want as far as him being an individual talent. But when it comes to ranking for his position, he doesn't rank that high because he doesn't play a winning style ball. He doesn't get you the assist or the steals or the things that you look for essentially in your point guards. He's not even that great of a leader. So he's a very skilled player. But again, if we're ranking his position, his skills don't translate to him really playing that position the way he could or he should in order to be considered one of the best.
Well, I break that down all the time too. I say I don't know how he can be this great point guard when let's say top 3 point guard of all time when his worst skill is passing the ball. That is his worst skill as a player, and I've watched him play. Like his best skill is breaking you down, his dribbling to break you down to hit his layup package, which are arguably, obviously his dribble's the best ever, and arguably his layup package is the best ever. Dude understands angles on the backboard that I've never seen. That is his best skill. His next best skill is his shooting and all that. And then his passing is nowhere near anywhere. So I don't know. I mean, what's their top three? What Magic, Curry, and then Kyrie? Is that what you're getting?
I've seen people say that it's Curry Magic and or Curry Magic. I've even seen people say Curry and Russ and Kyrie. I've seen people say Luca. This recency bias, and then just the overwhelmingly people saying like, oh well, Magic's not really that good. He couldn't shoot. I've had people say Magic Johnson is just Ben Simmons in the '80s, and I've had people say that, and I just laugh, and I'm like, you do realize that Magic is like a 90% free throw shooter. You do realize that Magic, when he took nearly 4 threes, he was nearly 40% from the field. He's not going to take the same threes that Steph's taking, but he could definitely make them. But people just don't know. They don't realize, and sometimes they don't understand that in the 80s they weren't really taking threes. So why would they have a 6'9" guard take three? Just realistically.
That's crazy. And then the fact to even compare, you said to Ben Simmons, right? To compare him to Ben Simmons, Magic, the player who can play any position, compare him to the player who doesn't want to play any position. That's wild to me.
That's a good point.
And I really quick, I did want to push just a little slight pushback. What we've seen from Kyrie Irving, I think what we can look at is that as a number one guy, it hasn't been great, but that 17-18 season where it's him, it's Horford, rookie Tatum, sophomore Jaylen Brown. When he played, he only played in 58 games, but they won 44 games when he played. And I can't, the math's kind of leaving my head when it comes to the rest. But I looked at it, and every game he played, they had a really great winning record. If he had played the entire season, based on the wins he had, they would have been close to 60 wins if he had played the entire season. So I think Kyrie Irving can be a number one guy. The problem is that they're so short, they're so futile, and that he either gets injured or he just doesn't want to show up and play. It kind of dents his career. And another thing is, I've said this before, is point to me a season where Kyrie Irving was a top 3 point guard. And they bring up seasons. I'm like, he wasn't better than Steph. He wasn't better than this guy. He wasn't better than that guy. For some reason, people can't comprehend that Damian Lillard is just greater and better than him all time. He just is. As a number one guy, we saw him go to a conference finals. As a number one guy, he's been on 50-win teams. As a number one guy, he's led teams to the playoffs that have gone past the first round, and he's actually played. And he's peaked higher. But for some reason, people can't comprehend that.
Well, I would say this up until this season, and I don't have the numbers, and maybe it'll go back a few seasons. I'm just saying, just off the top of my head, I would argue for his first 12 years, because he's in his 13th year now. So I'd argue his first 12 years. I'd say when it comes to winning basketball games, I'd have Chris Paul over him. So if you
100%.
value winning,
Of course.
no, but I'm saying up until like even the Suns, like the shell of a version we saw at the end with the Suns, I would still rather have the 23 version of Chris Paul if I'm trying to win basketball games over the 23 version of Kyrie. Just in a vacuum. Now, maybe if I have a different team, depending on the personnel, but just by themselves, I'd rather have Paul over Irving.
I think unless you've played with Kyrie, that's going to be the general consensus. I think everybody's going to pick Paul over Kyrie if they're trying to win a title. Like I said, if you've played with him, you probably have more trust in him. But I don't even know for a fact LeBron will pick Kyrie over Paul. But he's probably one of the only.
I'm saying 14.8 assists, Chris Paul. I want to make sure, not no prime Chris Paul. I'll take 14.8 assists, Chris Paul, to win.
I understand.
Yeah. And what's weird with now another crazy take I've heard. Now you brought up Chris Paul. I talked about how Rajon Rondo, in my opinion, you were there. I said he's not really. I don't think Rajon Rondo's a Hall of Famer. And I had people telling me that Rajon Rondo at his best was better than Chris Paul, which I refute multiple times over. I've had people say that Rajon deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and not Chris Paul because Rondo won a title, 2 titles. It's like why?
But Rondo wasn't even the top 3 player on the title. You know what I mean? In either one.
I say that all the time.
If you want to try to argue he was the 4th best Celtic in 08, I mean, cool, whatever. I wouldn't even say he was at least in the finals he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
I mean, I'm gonna be real. During that Celtics run, just watching them, Rondo looked like the general to me. Rondo looked like I don't mean like necessarily the captain, but he definitely looked like the player that they leaned on for guidance. Even though he's a young dude, he looked like the player that was out there keeping everybody accountable and keeping everybody like where they needed to be mentally. However, even with that, I don't feel as though at any point in his career I was able to look at him and see him as a better anything than Chris Paul, whether it be a point guard or a player. Like Rondo gives you some of the same things. Rondo is great at defense. He's great at making good decisions with the ball. He could even do a little offense, but at the same time, offensively, he's not matching Chris Paul offensively. That's first of all. Second of all, Chris Paul even edges him when it comes to assists and steals even. So, or they can go back and forth with the steals. But the point I'm making is Rondo, he doesn't edge enough for me to look at him like he's better than Chris in any aspect of his position.
He's not. He's not.
No.
Tony was there. I got into a huge argument with everybody about it because for some reason people kept going to titles, all defensive teams. Look at the assists. It's just like he didn't play in the fourth quarter of the NBA Finals. He had 3 terrible games in a 5-game series against the Miami Heat and Lakers in 2020. He couldn't even make a Team USA roster over Chris Paul, Darren Williams, or Jason Kidd. So how is he at any point better than Chris Paul?
Well, my favorite point is this. The 2015 playoffs with him. That's my favorite point about him. Is that the Mavericks, we all think Rick Carlisle knows what he's doing. Rick Carlisle said, no, just go home and we'll replace you with nothing. And that's better than what you're giving us right now. Man, like, I just don't know how you could be sent home during the playoffs. That's crazy.
He had a terrible stretch for a point guard from after he tore his ACL, played terribly in a losing Boston team, got traded to Dallas, didn't help them win at all, made Sacramento worse, had meaningless numbers, didn't help Chicago other than 2 playoff games that people tend to overrate, helped New Orleans, and then barely helped LA. People are like, oh, he won a title. You do realize he played 3 seasons in LA, right? He didn't help them in the first year, and he didn't help them the last year.
And then think about what we're talking about. How many teams did you just name? This is a point guard you just named, getting traded to all of these different teams.
Yeah, not.
Well, there was a while he was bouncing around everywhere. Yeah, I mean, there was the Mavs, the Kings, the Pelicans, the Bulls,
Lakers,
so it's like
the Celtics, Lakers, Hawks. Didn't he play for the Hawks?
The Clippers, the Cavaliers.
8. There's 9. I don't remember playing for the Cavaliers at all.
So just imagine that.
He played like a few games.
Like, that's just crazy. You're unable to place a point guard. Like, yeah, that's.
Well, hold on. I got a question. I've been hearing this recently. I want to know what this. Have you guys? Let's just go with this. Where do you guys have Steph ranked all time? I have him 12th. I think he's the 12th greatest player of all time right now.
Greatest player, not guard, but greatest player.
Just greatest player. You want to go point guard too? I would say second. He's my second in point guards. What about you, Kev?
Well. I have him the second greatest point guard, and I also have him as the 10th greatest player.
Okay. Nick doesn't really do the rankings like that. He just kind of roundabouts it.
Yeah, with Steph, I mean, it's hard to not put him at second given his accomplishments, because behind Magic, definitely I could put Steph behind Magic, but it's like there's so many great point guards to where it's like he has more accomplishments than them, but they do more with the position. For instance, like Jason Kidd was a better point guard than Steph, but Steph is, I guess, overall greater based on his accomplishments. Like, just like a John Stockton, he's better at the position than Steph to me, but then Steph has, once again, too many accolades to where it's just like, all right, well, he gets edge based on the things that he's accomplished. So I could see Steph at 2 or 3. I wouldn't put Steph outside of the top 3 as far as point guards go. Of all time, yeah, Steph's like right now at least like I'd say like 13. He's between 10 and 13 for me all time. He'll probably be higher.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because lately I've gotten some takes like this. Okay, one, I had a dude arguing the shit out of me today that Westbrook's better than him because Westbrook does more. He's a better rebounder and passer and all this other shit. Okay. And then the other one was in 2015. This was one of my favorite takes all time. In 2015, Kyrie was on that level that Curry was on. And everybody was saying that, or there were talks that people would rather have Irving than Steph. And the examples they gave me, because, well, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't believe that at all, because literally Kyrie by 2015 had showed you he could be the best player on a lottery team, and Steph told you showed you he could win the MVP and be the best player on the title team. So I didn't understand the gap. And when asked to break it down, the examples they used were, well, because people were saying that in 2015 because of what Kyrie did in the 2016 and 17 finals.
I'm gonna be real though. To be honest, and I'm a super Steph fan.
Yeah.
As a Steph fan in 2015, I was kind of nervous around Kyrie. I ain't gonna lie. Like I didn't like when Golden State had to go up against Kyrie because I saw him embarrassing Steph in my mind. I get on paper and from what you see on a consistent basis during that time, Steph was definitely way more consistent. So I'm not arguing with anybody that looked at that season and it's like based on this season, Steph is better. But when I would see just little things individually between them,
The
Kyrie was
eye
a
test.
problem. Yeah, Kyrie was a problem to me as far as opposition for Steph. Like I felt like he was stronger mentally than Steph was. Even though Steph, I felt like obviously was the better shooter, and Steph got hot a lot faster and more often than Kyrie. I felt as though when Steph wasn't raining threes or when he wasn't dropping, when his shot wasn't falling, he was kind of deer in the headlights. Whereas Kyrie, his shot ain't falling. He's a great finisher in the lane. Steph used to struggle with finishing. So because of these reasons, because of the fact that you can take Steph out of his game mentally because you can, put like 2, 3 players on him and he just start breaking all over the place, whereas Kyrie is gonna find a way to get through those defenders. I was
Mm,
edging I was edging Kyrie because what it is, and you've said this, Tony, Kyrie is better at getting to the cup. He's better at getting to the lane. Steph is good at eluding and getting away side to side and everything like that. But again, if his shot's not falling and they don't be rebounding the ball like they should too, he can shoot you out of the game.
Two questions. One, what I'm hearing is you thought Kyrie was a bad matchup for Steph. And two,
Yeah.
if you were the Warriors, would you trade Steph Curry for Kyrie in 2015?
No.
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 I don't think
No.
there's any GM that would make that trade. I don't think any GM. I think GMs would trade Irving for Steph, and I don't think there's one GM that would have traded Steph for Kyrie. That's just my opinion. Where to say, Kev?
Also, I wanted to point out, I was around. I watched basketball in 2014, 2015. I was hearing people argue that John Wall was better than Kyrie Irving, and that the conversation for me was always Kyrie Irving,
Yeah.
John Wall. I
Yeah.
remember that. I don't really remember anybody ever talking about Kyrie and Steph. That's the false narrative I've also heard. I had someone come on my live once ask me if I was drunk because they said everybody was talking about Kobe Bryant being the second or third greatest player of all time in 2010. And I looked it up and I was like, no one was saying that. There's not one article other than it being like a Lakers fan page or like a Lakers newspaper. There's not one reputable source. No one, not even like Bleacher Report when they're talking about the greatest players of all time in 2012. Kobe wasn't sniffing top 5. And he wasn't sniffing top 5 even in 2016. So I don't really get that narrative, and I do like that. Kyrie is probably one of the most skilled players of all time, but at the end of the day, it's the production that he brings, and it just doesn't equate to a lot of other point guards, especially during that
Yeah.
time. And
Now,
Yeah.
now, now, what do you think when we take away? Because this was the dude's argument today. Take away Steph's shooting, and what is he
Mhm.
better than Russell Westbrook in?
that's such a dumb thing to say because the same I
Okay.
saw. There's a good TikToker out there named Aaron Schroeder. Shout out to Aaron. He made a
Oh, I
video
know.
where
I emailed him trying to get
yeah
him on the show.
he made a really good video where he brought up Garnett and Giannis, and he put up this graphic that someone said, "How can you say that Giannis is better than Garnett when they gave Garnett shooting, defense, playmaking, all these things, and they gave one thing to Giannis?" And he was like, "Yeah, that still means Giannis is better because that one thing that he does is better than everything else." So that argument is so dumb because ask anybody this: is James Harden better than Kobe Bryant? Who scored more points? Who scored more points on average? Harden did. Who gets more rebounds? Harden. Who gets more assists? Harden.
Well,
Who,
the example I gave. The example I gave is this, and I mean, I understand if you have it the opposite way, but most people don't. Literally, the only thing Shaq did better than Hakeem was bull his way to the basket. That is the only thing Shaq can do better than Hakeem. And on your great list, who's higher, Shaq or Hakeem?
me, I have Shaq.
Shaq.
Most people would. Most people would, because at the end of the day, Shaq's the best player on 3 title teams, and Hakeem is the best on 2. Now, if you want to say, and I'll argue this shit out, shout out this, 95 Hakeem is the best player I've ever seen. He's by far the better one, but I can't knock anybody because at the end of the day, Shaq produced more in as far as titles go and all that, and that's over Hakeem. And all he did was, and that's the only thing he does better than Hakeem. So you can be better in one thing, but that one thing be so valuable that, like, I'll put it this way: I don't necessarily think he's a better passer. Westbrook has better vision. I just think he has higher usage, and I think he's stat chasing. Not only that, I also think, oh my God, this shit pissed me off today. I was screaming on my live about this. Hold on, and Neek, you would know because you watched it, and you watched both really well. At their peaks, would you rather have Kevin Martin or Klay Thompson?
Kevin Martin. Well,
Dude,
you know what? No, no,
don't
no.
get me started. Kevin
You
Martin
know what's
propaganda.
What's
Huh?
crazy? At their peaks, now here's the crazy thing. I would have Kevin Martin at their peaks over Clay just because I feel as though a peak Kevin Martin is going to be more consistent. Kevin Martin was even able to like lead a team, whereas Clay's a good second in command, but I don't know that Clay can necessarily lead a team. He can get hotter than Kevin Martin. You feel me? Clay, this is still the dude that can throw up 60 in his prime, but how often does that happen? You feel me? He's the same dude that can give you like 15 3-pointers in a game, but at the same time, that's so few and far in between. You feel me? Whereas, um, yeah, Kevin Martin was a little more consistent than Clay, for my opinion. So I will go with Kevin.
What about you,
Here,
Kev? Who would you rather have?
me personally, here's the biggest difference between Kevin Martin and Klay Thompson, which is why I would take Kevin Martin, is the fact that Kevin Martin can get to the free throw line. That is the biggest difference between Klay and a bunch of other shooting guards, is the fact that Klay is essentially a superstar spot-up shooter. Most of his shots are created for him versus someone like Kevin Martin, who we saw in 2010-11 averaged 24 points per game on a winning Rockets team. Didn't go to the playoffs, but they were a ninth seed with 43 wins. He shot 8 threes and 8 free throws. A rare combination. He would dominate in the NBA today. You'd much rather have that guy that has an abundance of offensive moves that lead to good
Yeah,
basketball.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
was going to
Because
say
he's
this. Well, I was going to say this. Kevin Martin in Sacramento at his peak averaged 25 a game on 42% shooting. And I'm telling the dude, I said, because he's got Westbrook over Curry. And I go, all I know is this: Curry won a title with Draymond and Clay as his running mates. Would you rather have Kevin Durant and Kevin Martin, or Clay and Draymond? And they're trying to tell me Clay and Draymond. And I was like, dude, I said, first off, most of those players are better. I said, Kevin Martin, I would rather have Kevin Martin. And they acted like I was insane saying I would rather have Kevin Martin. And even if you'd rather have Clay, it is clearly very comparable. And I would
No,
say,
it is comparable.
well, hold on. And I would say it's even more. I would see it's even more of an asinine because Kevin Martin can at least dribble at an NBA guard level.
Yeah, he's more athletic than Clay. He can literally do everything Clay. Like I was saying, he's probably not
Just
gonna
a
hit as
funny
many.
shot. Just a funny shot. That's what he's got.
So so he's probably not gonna hit as many threes as Clay, but he can give you as many points as Clay. You feel me? He's more athletic than Clay. He can move around a little more or a little better with mobility than Clay. So it's like
Wait, though, if Kevin
it's
Martin was 25 right now in the NBA, would he still give you as many threes as Clay, you think? Because I
No,
think
he'd
he
take
would.
more. He would take just as much as Clay. That's the thing, is that during a time period where they were barely taking threes, he was taking nearly 8 a game. And he's getting to the free throw line. How do people not comprehend that he's a three and free throw player? He'd be perfect in today's NBA. Daryl Morey talked about that it was Kevin Martin was like the prototype in terms of the three and free throw type of players, like a James Harden.
Hmm.
I don't get how
So,
people
so
don't
like I
comprehend
said,
that.
I don't get it. So, like I said, me and Neek, we both watched prime Kevin Martin. You know what I mean? I know you study the game and all that, and there's just no argument. I'll put it this way: I don't think there's any argument for Clay over him. Maybe I would take Clay in the Warrior system or with Steph because we see how well it works out. But just in a singular drafting, knowing what each two can do, much rather have Kevin Martin. You know what I mean? And then even if you don't want to have Kevin Martin, it's clearly they're very in the same league, which I think Kevin Martin just clear is 5-10% better in so many different areas than Clay.
I think the one difference though would be the defense, because Kevin Martin was not a great
Yeah,
defender. At his best, he was a decent defender. He
right. I
honestly,
agree
on
with that.
mm,
Wikipedia page, he talked about like how he wasn't great at
that'd have been
defense.
dope.
Guys like Doug Christie and Katina Mobley helped him get better, but he wasn't that great at it still. Clay's defense is clearly above Kevin
Yeah.
Martin. So that might be the one deciding factor where Clay's like he doesn't need the ball and he needs others to create for him and he can play defense. So that might be the one difference, but I would agree they're very similar.
And not only
Yeah,
that, but people don't understand that like somebody like guarding the perimeter really good, you know what I mean? You're only going to affect the game about 6 points. But an offensive player that's really good, you can affect the game like by 30 points. You know what I mean? So even if his defense is better, well, his offense is better. So
hmm.
he's 6 points versus 30 points, and I'm not saying it's that big a gap, but you get the point. We're going to say, Neek.
Oh, and I wanted to touch on the comparison between would you rather have Steph and KD or Steph with Clay and Draymond. That's just ridiculous because
No,
no
would you
one
rather
was
be Westbrook, which is who would be your duo? If
oh
you were picking
Westbrook.
basketball, would you rather your running mates be Martin and Durant or Draymond and Clay?
Martin and Durant, Draymond and Clay. Got you. That's that's a retarded question in my
Because they're it's
opinion.
because they're arguing that Curry's only better because chips, and that's a team accomplishment. Like Westbrook never had a squad.
First of all, if it wasn't for Curry and his team, Westbrook might have possibly won a championship. Curry stood in the way of Westbrook winning. I mean, Westbrook had an opportunity another time to do so and he didn't. So it's like we seen Steph go to the finals, lose. We seen Steph go to the finals and win. That's the difference. We've seen Westbrook go and just lose. Like we
As the
haven't
second
really
best
seen,
player.
and we haven't really seen him do much since. Whereas I don't see Steph being quiet. You know what I mean? I don't see you putting Steph on any team in the league and then his name just disappears. Now that may not necessarily be all on Westbrook, but his style of play made it possible for him to get shipped around the way he does and essentially forgotten about. I don't see
Okay.
that being a legacy for Steph. So I don't even feel as though there's really a comparison. And now you could say that he has all of these different talents and everything like that. And you can look at these talents like they're better than what Steph has. But at the same time, Steph's talents are leading to victories. Westbrook talents is just leading to personal hardware for him. But his teams aren't really doing anything. We're watching Steph change the whole way that we're playing the game. We're watching Steph bring a young crowd, like not a young crowd, a young core to greatness. Without Steph, how great is Klay Thompson on his own without Steph on his team? And that's no offense to him. I'm just saying, we removed Steph from Golden State. What is Klay Thompson's legacy without Steph attached to it? What's
Well, we
Draymond's
saw what
legacy?
Draymond in 20, what he could do without Steph.
Not much.
Nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
Now, I don't want to defend Draymond because I don't like Draymond Green, despite him.
Y'all are
Only, like,
Michigan
I
guys.
love Dre. I love Dre.
Yeah,
But you guys are Michigan guys.
Yeah, he only grew up like an hour away from me, so like I
Okay,
like I don't want to
okay.
like I don't want to defend Draymond, but all that. But to be fair, this is in 2020 when he's clearly a lot older. He had this weird athletic prime where it only lasted like a year and a half. You watch what he was doing in 2014, 2015, and in 2016. He's a completely different player. Just like during that period, and then 2 years later, his athleticism is just completely gone. So I think that champagne was drowning him a little bit when he was winning titles, but. It was weird with Dray. I'd like to see Draymond Green in 2016. I think he would have done a lot better in 2020 if he was a little bit younger. But I get what you're saying. With Klay, I don't think Klay ever could be a number one guy. I think the problem is when you look on Basketball Reference, he needs people to create a shot for him. He can't create his own shot. He has explosive moments where people are like 60 points on only like whatever amount of dribbles. It's like, that's cool.
Exactly. That's
But-
weird.
Well, you know what's funny? Well, you know what's funny? You know what's funny? I was talking to Devin Booker once, and we were chopping it up in a club once for like an hour, and I was like, "Clay can't dribble," and he's like, "I know." Like, I don't know how he gets to the hole with that. I don't know how he gets to the hole with that.
It's so bad that Klay knows he can't dribble. And what's even worse is I give Klay credit for being able to put the ball on the floor now and no one else does. And I get why no one else does because it still doesn't look good. It's like you're a guard. You're a guard. And the best I can say is, well, Klay has a little
All
crossover.
NBA guard. An all NBA guard. I've seen
Like,
this
that's the
before
best
with
I can
Reggie
say.
Miller. I've seen this
Yes.
before with Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller couldn't dribble. Reggie Miller, for those that never watched him live, he would hold the ball and just shake it. That was his crossover. He would stand there and shake the ball in air, and that was his crossover.
At least, though, again, this is the biggest difference. This is the one thing I got into an argument again with my live when I said that Klay Thompson wasn't even an honorable mention on my top 100 was Klay Thompson is a superstar role player. He just is. He needs other people to create his own shot. He doesn't provide any rebounding, doesn't provide any playmaking. He doesn't provide anything outside of just three-point shooting and cutting. Like, what do you get when you get Klay Thompson? You get someone who should probably be the third best player on your team, a guy who can get you 20 just mainly off of playing off of other guys, which is really good. You need guys like that. So you give Klay his credit. But this narrative around him that's mostly perpetuated by Klay fans and Golden State Warrior fans that he could be, a number one guy, it's completely fake because the difference, again, between him and Reggie is Reggie could at least get to the free throw line. Reggie could at least do something that could impact a game outside of just, having to go around 30 screens. And we saw in 13 years, Reggie went to either a conference finals or an NBA finals 6 times out of 13 years, which I don't think Klay Thompson could ever do.
And plus, Reggie doesn't go through like slumps that last for multiple seasons. Like Reggie might go through a slump in a series. He's not going through a slump for whole seasons.
Well, to be fair, Reggie didn't deal with a torn ACL and a torn Achilles. That does affect you in some ways.
But Reggie played in an era where they were playing through injuries, so we don't know what all injuries Reggie played through. I remember him hobbling around with that sprained ankle in a playoff. So you feel
Yeah,
me?
but a sprained ankle isn't a torn ACL though.
I get that. No, I get that. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is those players were more durable. Well, I don't know if they were more durable, but those players were rougher. They were tougher. So again, we don't know all of the injuries they were playing with. Where nowadays you get a paper cut, you probably out for like 2-3 games. Whereas back then, ain't no telling. You know, we got players like Kobe who's out there trying to shoot still with a torn Achilles. So I'm just saying, like, and I get the point that you're making. I'm just saying that did something more to him mentally. I don't think it was something physically wrong with him. I think mentally he got out, and that's the reason why I'm giving him some slack there, because mentally he got taken out of his game. It could be some physical reasons behind it.
I want to say this though about your list and all that, because like you said, he don't even deserve an honorable mention. If you don't got Bobby Dandridge in your top 100, I'm upset. Because Bobby Dandridge is a top. I don't give a fuck. He got him 100, 99, 98. He deserves to be in the top 100. He was the best player on a finals team that he outplayed Hayes and Unseld. You got both of them on your list, right? He outplayed. Hold on. In 1979, he came back 3-1 from Gervin, dropped 37 in the fourth quarter, scored like 20 37 total, dropped 20 and hit the game winner. 2 titles. Nobody scored more points in the finals. Bobby Dandridge was a two-way player. That dude deserves to be in your top 100.
He top 50 or top 75.
He's top 100. He's not top 75.
Better than Marcus Johnson or Chris Mullin?
Chris Mullin, yeah.
You think so?
I think I mean not at their peak. I would take their overall career. I would take Dandridge's career over Mullins. I would definitely say that. But Mullin at his peak is what, 26, 7 and 6, something like that. So
team, Chris Mullin.
Yeah. I would argue no. I wouldn't say Chris Mullin at their peak. If we're doing peaks, no. I would rather have Dandridge's career than Mullins. I definitely would that. And then Marcus Johnson, which is funny because I've been talking to him. I've been talking to his wife or whatever. Well, I've been texting him or whatever, trying to get him on the show. What was his name in White Men Can't Jump when he tried to rob the store?
I couldn't tell you. I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
No, I know Neek might know though, is what I'm saying.
Oh man. Nah.
When they was like, yo, was that you? Was that you? Was that you? So I don't know. I mean, Marcus Johnson, he made all NBA first team and all that. So I mean, if we're going by accolades, no. But who else do you got?
Well, on the bottom of my list, it's guys like Bernard King, Amari Stoudemire. It's Blake Griffin. It's Dennis Rodman.
Amari Stoudemire. He's over Amari Stoudemire. He's over Amari Stoudemire like a motherfucker.
Well,
I was here in Phoenix. He's over Amari. I don't give a shit what you say. He's over Amari. Let me just put it straight. This is conference finals against the Laker Amari Stoudemire. 25 points, 6 rebounds, half an assist. Now, do you think that's a top 100 player? 6 rebounds from your power forward center and half an assist?
I think the context behind that is he's going up against 2 7-footers, and Amari was never that kind of rebounding guy. I think the thing that made him special was the pick and roll, his athleticism, and his ability to score as a big man, which as a big man peak against Tim Duncan was 37 and 10. Which I don't think.
And a loss. But
it's still an impressive.
Watched every game live. Bad defense, out of position. He had a quick first step. You know what I mean? Now, what was his reason for getting? I'll put it this way. Normally, when really good power forwards, because Amari used to piss me off with the rebounding. Normally, if Tim Duncan's getting you 37 points, he's getting me 15, 20 rebounds. Same thing with Shaq. Same thing with all the other great guys. Why is Amari only getting me 10?
Because I think he's a different kind of power forward. He, that like when it comes to bigs, the thing that made Amari Stoudemire so impressive was his athleticism. It was his ability to score, which we hadn't really seen out of the power forward position in terms of that explosive scoring really since probably Barkley, because Weber was more finesse. O'Neal was more inefficient. Duncan was fundamental. Garnett was inconsistent. Amari was explosive. And I think that's the thing that stood out was a 6-time All-Star, 1-time All-NBA first team power forward that also played center that was probably the second or best player on 3 teams that went to a conference finals in a Western Conference that was tough.
Right. And then we saw what Amari Right. And then we saw what Amari Stoudemire did when he was still 2010-11 with the Knicks. He was leading them to about an eighth A seed. The year they got
Which, to
Carmelo
be
before
fair,
Carmelo got there.
To be fair, though, we're talking about Raymond Felton, who's having a career year. We're talking about Landry Fields, a second-round pick, Danilo Gallinari, who wasn't there yet. Guys like that. Like, what he was doing was really impressive because the Knicks had nothing up to that point, and he was leading them. It showed that Amari with nothing can lead you to 22 and 16 before Melo went there as a 26-point a game scorer, which is, to me, that's still something. Yeah, as a 6'10" power forward / center, not rebounding, not the best defender, but his offensive capabilities were just sometimes they outweigh those negatives if you have the right pieces around them.
Yeah, I know, but we're also factoring, like I said, I think Wilson Chandler was underrated in that run too. Like Wilson Chandler was really good for his role.
Yeah, he was good.
I was gonna say, I hear you on that point. I personally, when he went to New York, I expected more out of him, not less. And partially
he had that one good year, and then he just fell apart.
Right, so that's what I'm saying is hold on, wait a minute, because if we're doing that, so Amari missed 06, so you're telling me 7 seasons of healthy Amari is worth more than Dandridge.
I think my thing is I need to do a little bit more studying up on Dandridge because I'm not going to be ignorant and be like, oh yeah, well. But what I can tell you from Amari is that from what I know and I've looked at Amari's career. Again, it's like a 23-point a game, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. He's not a great defender, but he is getting you blocks, which doesn't mean really anything. Hassan Whiteside got nearly 4 blocks, and Whiteside's terrible. But what we saw is that with Amari Stoudemire as at least the second best player next to Steve Nash, your team can win 60 games. And that says a lot about a guy like Amari Stoudemire, despite having some of those things that he doesn't have. Those are things that I do think matter and
Dandridge is your best player, you can win a title because he was the best player in that series in the finals.
Also,
so Dandridge is your best player. Huh?
Also, it's like this. Amari he's a great talent. You feel me? Amari is he's
Irving. He's Kyrie, the power forward.
He's great with skill, but Bob Dandridge was heart. You feel me? This is somebody that's playing with will. Amari didn't have that kind of will, and that's, to me, the biggest difference. That's what sets players apart. Do you have the will? Do you have the fire? Do you have the desire to actually go out and win? Amari didn't have that. He has Steve Nash with him, who can make a talented player a superstar because he's that good. But you see, when you don't have a Steve Nash around, how good is Amari really? He's still a good player.
Well, the thing though with Amari we saw in New York is that he did have Raymond Felton, who's not as good as Steve Nash, but he still essentially kind of played up to the level that he did in Phoenix. The only difference was, and this is a big indicator, is he was not as efficient. His field goal percentage was down, and his free throw percentage, I believe, was down as well. He clearly was not as efficient as he was in Phoenix, but as we saw as a number one guy, clear-cut number one guy, other guys are not as talented around compared to his team the year prior. He's still a really, really good player. He's a top 10 All-NBA second-team player, which, hey, that does matter. Amari at his best was an MVP candidate and an All-NBA, All-NBA first team, All-NBA second team guy, which means at some point he was considered a multiple-time top 10 NBA player, which
just real quick though, let's say you have on the board and it's your first pick and you're at Amari or Bobby Dandridge and you know what you know about him, who would you pick?
I think it would depend on the team I have. If
you have nobody, this is your first pick.
My first pick, well, I wouldn't want either of them. But if I probably would. I think here's my thing is, like I said, I don't know enough about Bobby Dandridge to make an adequate opinion on him, other than I know some of the things that you told me. I probably would go Amari simply because I know I can fit him into my team a little bit better than what I know of Bobby Dandridge. Because again, Amari was a pick and roll guy that you can rely on to, make those baskets when you need them, as long as you got a good point guard.
Right, and that's what we saw. And we saw that able to execute that with guys like Marbury and things like that, nearly to that level. And then once Marbury got out of there and they were running the point through like Penny before they shipped him off to New York, and who else was it there? They tried Leandro Barbosa that season, and then Joe Johnson was handling a lot of ball duties and all that.
Yeah, they gave Marcus Banks a 4-year, $25 million contract.
Well, that was like in 06, 07 though, but that was after Nash got there or whatever. So I mean, yeah, that was terrible. They've always had terrible GMs and all that. But let's move on. But yeah, I think Bobby Dandridge, and like especially if you read the articles, like I said, going up at nose to nose with Havlicek, guys like
Hmm.
outplaying Gervin in game sevens. Gervin's getting 42, and he's still the better player. Who else? Dr. J, beating them in series and things like that. So I don't know. Just a big fan of always been a big fan of Bobby Dandridge ever since I found out about him. My dad, you weren't here for it, but my dad said this. He goes, now Bobby did one time we were talking about old players, and my dad comes in, he goes, now I'm gonna tell you he's a bad motherfucker. Is Bobby Dandridge. He goes, now that's who I tried to play my game like that. But I'm 6'2" and white, so that shit didn't work out. So what's up? You got any more bad takes? Like, what's some other bad takes you think you got? Like, what are the other ones? If not, I got more.
Dwight Howard told me once that he was undeniably the best player in the league at some point.
Undeniably.
Dwight
No, he
Howard
wasn't.
told me.
Undeniably.
No, he wasn't.
Wow.
No,
Because
he wasn't. From '08 to 2012, he had a strong case for number 2.
yeah, if you really want to give him that, yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah,
if you
I
look
don't
at the
have the-
ESPN ranked top 500, he was ranked number 2 a lot.
I think the thing though is that he was ranked that high simply because who else was there at the center position? Here's another thing. I think you brought up earlier, just like looking at Dwight, you should expect him to dominate. Like you're talking about a 6'10", big shouldered, athletic guy who broke the record for highest vertical for a center, broke Shaq's record. Just you looked at him and you're like, how can this guy not dominate? And sometimes your physical features just don't matter because it matters what's up here. And Dwight Howard just never had it up here. When you look at the competition that he had, some of the guys that were 20-point-a-game scorers are guys that were at least competent at their position. It's guys like Al Jefferson and Amari Stoudemire and Andre Bargani and Brooke Lopez. And Al Horford. It's like these are the guys he's going up against.
Bargnani sucked. He always sucked. Same thing for Gallinari. Same thing for Danilo Gallinari. They both always sucked. I don't care what their numbers are. They sucked. They were awful. If you wanted to win a game,
Danilo was the best player on a Clippers team that nearly won 50 games and went up against the Warriors, took it to Game 6 in the first round.
Which one are we talking? Hold on. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell were the 2 best players on that team, and they both came off the bench.
I think it was Gallinari. Gallinari
Hell no. Hell no. We disagree.
Lou had that Jamal Crawford thing going on though, where he's coming off the bench, but he really should be a starter. So
but if you remember down the stretch, but if you remember down the stretch, all they did was run pick and roll with the 2. That was their entire offensive scheme, was pick and roll with Harrell and Williams.
That's because that was their 2 best strengths. Montrez at his best was like just a pick and roll guy, a guy who really couldn't create his own shot. Toughness. Here's a great bad take. Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson once said that Montrezl Harrell is clearly better than Jokic because Montrez has got the dog. As if that matters.
I mean,
my God, they had a lot of bad takes.
It can matter, but you can't just have the dog. You gotta also have the points. You gotta also have the stops.
And the assists.
Yeah, you feel me? You can't just can't just be a dog.
Right, because I do want to say this. Did you see that? You saw the Jerry West quote, right? And I just want to let you know this. Daniel Gallinari always sucked in the playoffs. I think for his first 3 years, I think one of those were the Clippers. He was shooting like 35% in the playoffs. You know what I mean? He just dropped like a rock every year. That's why I couldn't stand him. But Jerry West said, he goes, everybody's talking about their dogs and all that. He's like, well, I guess I got a wolf in me because I eat dogs.
Damn.
That's what Jerry West said.
Damn.
Shots fired.
Or something along those lines. I'll tell you the bad take that's really pissing me off. I'm so sick of this take that, and like I said, and Neek ain't a number guy. He knows numbers, but he ain't a number guy like that. But Neek watched it. Kobe Bryant carried Shaq to those finals. Shaq took over in the finals because Kobe was tired after carrying him for 3 rounds.
That's the thing that never made, because we look at their finals, guys. Every single time someone brings up, look at what Kobe did in the West. It's just like, that's true. That's tougher competition. Why did he always end up usually dropping against the Eastern competition, though? If he's going up against guys that are clearly not as good, like, why did he only average 15 points? Why did he score 8 points, I believe, in Game 2 going up against?
They'll argue the shit out. That's an ankle injury. They'll argue that Jalen Rose injured his ankle. They'll argue the shit out of that.
Game 3, though, in Game 3, what happened in Game 1 and Game 2?
So I think it was Game 2. I think it was Game 2 that he only played 8 minutes. I think it was game
Then it
2.
might have been that game, but it still
Yeah.
doesn't like he's going up against those guys. And then okay, what about the next year? He's going up against Aaron McKee, Eric Snow, and Allen Iverson. I don't think if Kobe's this most skilled offensive player, even at 22 years of age, he probably should have been able to cook those guys.
Hey,
And
wait
he
a minute,
didn't.
wait a minute. That's my question on that. Okay, wait a minute. They told me that. They told me because it's about the matchups. Okay, that is why they gave Shaq because the other. Now I'm just going to ask you if you had to guess, 21-year-old Kobe Bryant, who's All NBA. What was he, second or third team that year? All NBA, and we just watched him cook the shit out of Scottie Pippen in the conference finals, where Scottie Pippen couldn't stay in front of him. His next matchup is Reggie Miller. Now, who's a better defender at 35, Reggie Miller or Scottie Pippen?
Scotty.
Okay, now if Shaq has got Rick Smits guarding, old Rick Smits, he's like 35 too. But Smith, but I'm just trying to say there's an advantage Smits has in height, right? What is the
7'5".
advantage Reggie Miller has? Huh?
7'5".
Yeah, what is the advantage Reggie Miller has?
Reggie Miller has absolutely no advantage over Kobe at all.
Maybe
Then let's go the next year. Then next go. Shaq's matchup is Dikembe Mutombo, the current defensive player of the year, and the list of the players he got. Now, who do you think has the better matchup?
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe.
Bryant. And then if you want to argue Shaq had the advantage versus Todd McCullough over Kerry Kittles, I'll give you that one.
I mean, here's how I look at it. Kobe Bryant had to fight for his position as a starter. Shaq came into the league dominating. Shaq was a very young player getting his team to conference finals. Shaq was even young when he went to the Lakers and they started winning titles. So I say that to say, I don't see how we can look at it like Kobe carried Shaq. It looks like had Shaq not gone to LA, do we even talk about Kobe? We were talking about Shaq before he went to LA. We were talking about him before he was on the Lakers. Shaq was a big name on the Magic. You feel me? We already, on the Magic alone, there's no shock that Shaq ended up winning the title just from what you see with the Magic. So his time was coming. Kobe got molded into greatness, and there's nothing wrong with that. But during this period that we're talking about where they were winning titles, this was Shaq. This is Shaq and Kobe molding, but it wasn't Kobe carrying him. You feel me? As the second best player, I will hope there's going to be some games you can, but let's be real. Shaq didn't apply himself. If Shaq applied himself more, he wouldn't even needed Kobe's help like that. Shaq didn't want to work.
I kind of want to push back on that a little bit because the thing that we do got to realize is that we're talking about a 6'6" guard at 210 pounds, 205 pounds versus Shaq, who's playing in the post. Everything's a lot closer to the basket. It's hard. Like one of the things that I learned from J.A. Adonde, who talked about Shaq, he was just like, it's hard to officiate Shaq. They can call a million offensive fouls on Shaq, or they can call a million defensive fouls on the opposition. So Shaq is always getting beat up in the post. He's always getting pulled. He's always getting hit. At 7'1" and over 300 pounds with bad feet and bad toes, in his mind, he's like, I don't need to work as hard as Kobe Bryant because I'm already at this talented level in terms of my body, in terms of my talent, just in terms of my game. When you look at that, it kind of makes sense. I kind of get why Shaq was that way. I do also get why Kobe was also coming at Shaq being like, just imagine if you had worked as hard as I did. And he's like, I don't need to because I'm already better than you. I can reach levels that you just can't. And I do get that perspective from Shaq as well.
Well, I just want to ask you guys this, okay? Because this is the Sacramento line. Hold on, I just want to say this. So, would you rather have 35 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists on 47% shooting, or would you rather have 33.3 points, 17.3 rebounds, 3.3 blocks on 60% shooting? Now, who's outplaying who?
Outplaying is a bit of a strong word, but clearly Shaq is the best player. What he's doing is the most important thing. Their entire offense is around Shaq. Kobe's just filling in the holes, and he's doing an amazing job. But it's clearly Shaq.
What would you say, Neek?
I mean, I was going with Shaq's numbers for one, just based off the percentage alone, because 30 points shooting at 60%, that's extremely good. And then, when you add all the other stats and the other factors into it and the way Shaq plays, I got to go with Shaq. You feel me? Because it's kind of like I was saying about Steph. When Steph gets guarded by too many players, he can shoot himself out of a game. We know for a fact Kobe can shoot himself out of a game. I don't know that Shaq can shoot himself out of a game.
So what do you think of this?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I've never seen Shaq shoot you. He can free throw shoot you out of a game. And even then, I don't think he can free throw. Like I said, I'm gonna put it this way. His free throw woes are so overrated because the amount of volume he got and put the other team in foul trouble. And then guys like Kobe now, instead of getting touched 2 or 3 times before he gets line, now he's getting on that first attempt and other things like that. And people don't realize that as well. And then backups are coming in and all that. You got something you want to say, Kev?
No, I was agreeing with you. No, you're 100%
Yeah.
right. Jay,
No, right.
thing.
Right. I mean, I've been watching basketball for 32 years. I get how the game is played. I've coached, all that kind of stuff. But here's a take. JJ Redick believing that he was better than Dolph Shays. What do you guys think of that?
Well, he is better than Dolph Shays simply because he played in the 2000s and the 2010s versus Dolph Shays
Right.
He's obviously a better player simply by evolution and skill. But in terms of career, he comes nowhere near. Like, that's one of the reasons why I kind of hated JJ Redick as an analyst, is because he kind of just turned into like a mark. He's just like, oh, I'm going to say all the things that people are saying on Twitter and they're going to think I'm cool. It's just like, no, dude, like, have some original takes and actually back up what you're saying before you just put your hands up in the air saying, I played at Duke. Where'd you play? You know?
Mm-hmm. I got you. Now I want to know this. I want to go through because we're coming up on the end of our hour and all that as well. We'll go with you first, Kev, and then we'll toss it to you, Neek. Who do you think is the most underrated player of all time?
That is a great question. My mind automatically goes to guys like Jerry West. I think Barkley gets underrated. People tend to not realize how great he was. Isaiah Thomas, but I got to go with my number one pick simply because where I have him on my list. It's Moses Malone. I think people forget how great Moses Malone was as a 3-time MVP. The fact that he carried a 40-42 Rockets team to an NBA Finals against the Celtics. The fact that at one point or another he was arguably the best center up there with Kareem fighting for that position, one of the greatest offensive rebounders. People just forget about him because he was a really quiet guy, but he deserves the recognition. I will never forget when Mars on Player's Choice tried telling everybody that he was the worst MVP of all time.
Wow.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm gonna go. I've been saying this for years, and we ranked MVPs once on the show. Unseld is the worst MVP of all time, and it's not even close.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I think if we're looking at the worst MVPs, it's him, it's probably Derrick Rose, and it's probably Russell Westbrook.
Dang. That hurt to hear.
Yeah, I'm big on that. Hey, I threw up a clip. I don't know if you guys know this, but Hakeem actually learned a lot about playing basketball because when he was at Phi Slamma Jamma, he learned with Moses. They put him in the gym with Moses. I put a clip on my TikTok and all that. So if you guys want to check it out, it's on there. Also, too, I got another good Moses story. Did you ever hear that story about Charles Barkley when he was talking about as a rookie, he's not playing, and he was talking to Moses Malone about it?
No.
So he's talking to Moses Malone. He's like, yeah, man, I'm just not getting no playing time. And he said, Moses, he's like, yeah, because you're fat and lazy. And he goes,
oh,
what?
yeah.
He said, he said, because you're fat and lazy. So Moses shot from the hip too. What about you, Neek? Who's some of your most all time?
I gotta add Kevin Johnson to that list.
That was gonna be my guy. Like,
yeah, the way his name is ignored or forgotten is kind of criminal. I get, he wasn't for everybody as far as how he was personally, but that aside, just his game itself, like, this is a dude that's consistently getting you pretty much 20 and 10 at the guard position, and not just at the guard position, but
with 2-3 steals, 6'1".
Yeah, you feel me?
With
he's
2-3 steals,
and he was a lockdown. I mean, I consider him to be a lockdown defender. Doing
he was a good defender.
Yeah, he's so. Again, 6'1", good defender, giving you 20 and 10. He could have done that for the most part of his career. So that's one of the players. Who else is underrated on my?
Really quick, I want to say on Kevin Johnson. I said that Kevin Johnson, in terms of peak and in terms of just as a basketball player, you can argue was a greater and better player than Kyrie Irving, and that gets a lot of
definitely.
That's crazy. I pointed out, do you not realize that Kevin Johnson was the best player in a team that nearly won 60 games and went to back-to-back Western Conference Finals? Do you name me anything that Kyrie Irving's done is close to that? And people will say, well, it doesn't matter, Kyrie Irving.
While getting you like 22 and 12. While getting you like Chris Paul peak numbers, 22 and 12.
Yeah.
With 3 steals.
Yeah, exactly. And people just can't comprehend that. Well, Kyrie Irving's the most skilled player of all time. He's getting you 28. It's just like, that's true.
Wait a minute. And when he attacked, he had Westbrook attacking like. Obviously, Westbrook is a higher level, but he would attack the rim like Westbrook, dunk on
I
players and all
mean,
that.
he dunking on players like Akeem, not just dunking on players. He's dunking on one of the best defenders we've ever seen. Well, I think
People
Ewing
just
got
don't
some of that
realize.
smoke too.
People just don't realize it. They don't recognize it. They don't understand it because it doesn't make
I say
sense.
his peak. I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. If we're drafting all-time teams and my starting point guard is peak Kevin Johnson, I'm cool. Like I'm not
Yeah,
tripping. If we're drafting
yeah.
all-time teams, you got more. You got more underrated ones you want to do?
One more. I mean, I've mentioned this one before, but I'm gonna say him again. Eddie Jones. The reason I consider Eddie Jones to be underrated is kind of the same way with Kevin Johnson, whereas you're seeing the influence, we're seeing the impact that they're making on the players that's coming after them, and then you just completely forget their name. You feel me? People talk and praise and held Kobe, and rightfully so, but they held Kobe on his pedestal. Like they don't know that there was an Eddie Jones that was right there, basically mentoring him, that he was mirroring himself. It's easy to look at Kobe and see the Mike influence, but everybody don't see that Eddie Jones influence. And had you seen Eddie on that team, it's kind of obvious. So
Like
Eddie
that.
Jones.
So I'm gonna go. Well, I want to say this too about Eddie Jones. He's the reason why Kobe Bryant didn't start. Not because Dale Harris hated him, and not because any other reason. It's because Eddie Jones, for the first 3 years of Kobe's career, is a better player. And there's an argument that Eddie Jones is better for the first 4 years. Okay, and if you want to say you think Eddie Jones is better in Kobe's fourth year than Kobe is, I mean, I understand. You know what I mean? To me, it's very close. I would have Kobe better than Eddie Jones, but there's legit argument for that. One of the guys I want to do is, especially at his peak, is Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell is the best. It's Sam Cassell. No, you don't understand.
Hold
Sam
up.
Cassell is literally the best post up point guard of all time. Is the best. I don't know why he didn't do it more, but he's the best. He was calm under pressure. He could run the offense. He could get you assists. I mean, the only knock on Sam Cassell is he looked like he was out of the movie Aliens. Other than that, there is no
It looked
knock.
like Baraka.
Just like Reggie Miller looked like he was on Star Trek as a member of one of the Ferengi. You know what I mean? Shit happens like that. But what I'm saying is Sam Cassell is the best post up point guard of all time. And it's what's up?
I was gonna say Sam Cassell, just winner, just
Oh
absolute.
no.
Like it's crazy. Like look at every single stop he had, probably outside of New Jersey. Every single team he was on was winning. Houston, Milwaukee, Minnesota, the Clippers, and then Boston. Just Sam Cassell doesn't get enough credit sometimes.
He be in the right place.
Right. Right. Some other really good post up point guards too was Andre Miller and Mark Jackson, for those
Oh
that don't
yeah.
know. And I guess Andre Miller has a real high voice and all that as well. But for me, it's the alternate because like I don't see him getting respected enough. Is Hakeem. Hakeem to me, I don't know how you can't have him in your top 10. I don't know how you can't have him in your top 10. The dude is literally anybody that's ever watched him play, nobody ever, one dude, I take that back, one dude. But when I say he's the best player I've ever seen, nobody ever argues that. Nobody ever, they all understand what I mean. The dude was able to do more, even in worse series. Like, what's Shaq's best series, would you say, Kev?
Probably 2000, where he's like 37 and 18.
Right. So he was 38 and 17. And Akeem Olajuwon had a series where he averaged 38 and 17 too, with like 4 blocks and more steals and all that. You know what I mean? They just didn't win because the team was shit. Andrew Wiggins' dad was on the team and he was banned from the league for drugs. You know, he lost his starting backcourt 1 year. Him and Lloyd, I think, was the other dude. So I'm just saying, you guys don't understand. Like, so Hakeem, I swear to God, and Neek, you watched him. The only reason why Hakeem didn't win more was because of his team, right? Not because of him.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been his fault. I mean, he the
I
reason they
mean,
won.
yeah, I mean, like Magic and Kareem, he was 31, 11, and 4 when he knocked them out in his year and all that. Like, you just guys, like, as Chill would say, you guys have no idea how good Akeem was. Like, that dude is just amazing. If I only could pick for one season, I'm drafting 95 Akeem. That'd be my number one pick. You guys can have Jordan, you can have whoever you want. I'm taking 95 Akeem.
That
So,
would be
hey,
a
real
really
quick, who? Yeah, I know. Hey, wait, real quick, two things. One, who do you think is before we go, I want to ask that now. One, who do you think is the best peak season of all time? And then two, who would be the best player you've ever seen personally? Their one peak season, both of y'all. Who wants to go first?
Best peak season.
I mean, I already have my answer.
Okay, well, give me your answers.
I personally, I think the best peak of all time. I think it.
One
I
season.
honestly,
One season.
yeah, one season. I would probably
Mhm.
have to go with '93 Jordan. That's the season that I always think about when I'm reading about his career. When I'm reading news, when I've read articles, newspapers, reading my favorite books that talk about '93 Jordan. Just the level of control he had of the game, winning that third title through some adversity that was off the court. He like was at 100% of his offensive defensive capabilities while kind of being at 90% of his offensive capabilities, just simply because 98 Jordan was 100% there, but he lacked that athleticism and defense. I think that's the peak season for shooting guards, for players. That's the season. That's the season I'd go with. And me, the best player I've ever seen for a season was 2018 LeBron James. That season always sticks out to me because I watched game one of the NBA Finals in 2018, and I said, that is the greatest game I've ever seen anybody play. It was just the picking his spots, the timely shot making, the timely, driving to the basket and drawing fouls, just his ability to
Mhm.
make the toughest layups I've ever seen, and just single-handedly taking on Steph, Clay, KD, and Dre and the Warriors, while really having nobody consistent alongside him. It was the one time I've ever seen somebody single-handedly take on a team. And
Hey,
he
you know
really,
what's funny? You know what's funny? That's Hakeem, except he won the title doing that. That's
I
what's
will
so funny
argue that
about that.
Clyde Drexler would probably have helped LeBron James just a little bit against the
I'm not.
Warriors.
I'm talking about I'm talking about '94 when his second best player is Vernon Maxwell getting 13.8 a game on 37% shooting and 13.7 shots as far as
I'm willing,
scoring goes.
I'm willing to bet LeBron would have preferred Hakeem's spacing that season versus what he had in 2018. I think he would have loved to have
Mm.
had Sam Cassell, Kenny Smith, Robert Horry, Otis Thorpe, and Vernon Maxwell over Kevin Love, Larry Nance Jr., and Jordan Clarkson.
I don't
Definitely.
know, man. I mean, I would rather have. I
What
guess
do
I
you
would
mean
rather
you
have.
don't know?
No, no. I'm just saying in the finals for that first run, '94. I mean, Drexler, sure, but I'm saying like I'd rather have 19 and 11 Kevin Love than 11 and 9 Otis Thorpe.
I think the thing with the numbers with Kevin Love though is just the fact that he can't create his own shot at
Neither
that
can
age.
Otis Thorpe.
Well, the thing though with Kevin Love though is that look at how inconsistent he is throughout his entire playoff
Oh
runs.
no, I
Like
agree.
he's 38%. He can't create his own shot. He's a 6'8". He lost a lot of weight, so now he
Yeah.
can't bang
Can't
down.
bully ball. Can't bully ball. Yeah, I got
Can't
you.
bully ball. He can't offensive rebound anymore because he's 20 feet away from the basket. He's
Well,
essentially a spot up shooter. He's a talented player. He just never really fit with LeBron because he's not the ideal type of player that fits with LeBron. He was never that spot up guy. He can make threes. He's not a spot up three player.
No, I'll be on. No, and I'll be honest with you. So the Michael Jordan, because I watched that. I watched that series. I watched Michael Jordan that year. Especially like I said here in Phoenix, I watched the Suns series, and I'm originally from back there too. So both teams and all that. 41 point a game in the finals is the second best Jordan that I have. But what edges it for me is like in that run, and I think that's the best Jordan all the time. Like I argue that all the time. I say the '93 Bulls are better than the '96 Bulls. If they played in a series, they would. I would rather have Horace Grant than Dennis Rodman. And I would rather have 93 Jordan over 96. You could argue you might rather have 96 Pippen over 93, but it's very close.
No,
So yeah, I would definitely have that 93. But the biggest difference to me is like I'm watching Hakeem run through guys like David and Shaq. I'm watching Jordan run through guys like Marley and Starks. And it's just their
mm.
level of competition in that
wait,
regard.
whoa,
Oh,
hold on. Wait. Why are you bringing up John
let's
Starks? What about Patrick Ewing? You clearly did not mention Ewing.
no, no,
because
no, no, no,
because
no, no.
Starks
Who's
was the one
who's
guarding him.
who's the
Oh,
matchup?
he's guarding him. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Never
yeah.
mind.
Who's the matchup? Right. Who's the
That's
matchup? So that's what I'm saying. And David Robinson is an all-time defender. David Robinson is awesome defensively. It's we got like a little, scared offensively, but not defensively. Nick, who you got? Who's the best player you ever seen? And then who you think's got the best peak years?
Now, so I kind of want to go with actually I want to go with KD. Now the best
wow.
peak season, I'm going with Steph. I'm going with, in my opinion, you
So you
already
think
took my
20
Jordan.
set so you're saying 2017 KD's the best you ever saw or no?
Or 2014.
20 no, so it's 2015 Steph, but as far as that's the peak. And then what was the other question? I'm sorry.
Best
The
Oh,
player.
best
who?
I've
Oh,
ever seen.
yeah, best you ever
Best
seen.
I've
So Steph's
KD,
unanimous
KD,
MVP.
and
Okay.
then KD. What was that? 2018. That's the second year that they won.
Yeah.
That's the year I'm going with. That
Really?
yeah. So here's the reason why. Given how tough it was for LeBron, we're seeing a different animal in LeBron, and we're seeing KD just run through teams. Now, granted, he did have the Warriors, so I get that, but at the same time, KD was just going crazy. We're seeing him as a clutch player. We're seeing him as a defensive player. You feel me? KD didn't really have to. He had when he was playing in Oak. Oh no, my phone died.
Well, I will say this. Because a lot of people forget about how good KD was in the finals. What was he? He was like 29, 11, and 8, something like that, and that's
In
like LeBron series numbers. Yeah, in 2018, he's like 29, 11, and 8. And I mean, I'm sure he's shooting over 50% and all that. But I don't know if Neek's gonna go. We gonna wrap this up anyway. We over time. Hold on, we gonna go 0 to 200 real quick.
Finish, please don't make me laugh with that half-ass gimmick. I'm about to get mine and it's about time. Call us grindhouse, everybody in a house grind. I'm just doing me, I ain't trying to outshine. Trying to kill my vibe is how you get outlined. I don't do it for the views and the likes, boy. I'm just giving you what I wrote last night, boy. I don't care if it isn't what you like, boy. My flow is fucking awesome, ain't it, white boy?
All right. So anyway, so we're gonna be out. We're gonna be back next week. Kev, where can we find you?
You guys can find me on TikTok, Kev Loves NBA. Going to be uploading some more videos soon after we get this move done. But yeah, I'm also going to be going live at some point soon, so check me out there.
Yeah. Anyways, though, yeah, stay on. I want to holler at you afterwards. And that's it. We out. Please check us out next week. Hold up one second.